And I'm excited to break it down with you, pal.
Oh, I am as well, man. 4 hours. We're going to break it all down. We're going to talk a lot of Niners, maybe get into some Golden State. Looks like
they got a game tomorrow.
Bonte left his phone. I don't know. Somebody left a phone. Hey, good to see you, man. And this is the first time we've talked since the game. And, man, there's so many people now, Ryan Clark and others, doubting Brock Purdy. And I love it. I absolutely love it. Because
what do you love about it?
Well, I love it because I know that is the kind of thing that makes Brock Purdy better. You know what I mean? And nobody's better when everybody's, kissing your butt and telling you how great you are. You're better when people are doubting you if you have any competitive fire. And I've asked him about it in the past. He's like, yeah, man, I play with a chip on my shoulder. I call it Boulder's shoulder.
Okay.
And I just love it. Bring it, Keep questioning that kid, because what I saw last week, and I was just showing you outside in the whatever. What do we call that?
The green room.
The green room.
The green room, Larry.
The
Johnny Carson. Yeah.
Where Brock Purdy dropped back to pass a lot in this last game, and his feet were just locked at the top of his drop. He would just drop back there and just stand. And it's like, you know what? Steve Young said it. He said, you know what? Well, the rest of us were going, oh, man, thank God they got rest. Thank God Purdy's going to get some time off and Greenlaw and CMC. Yeah, all these guys. Okay. The rest was good for a lot of people. For the quarterback, I don't know. Based on what I saw the other night against Green Bay, maybe the rest wasn't great. He didn't look like he was in rhythm at all. But it's like, I just think that, he's going to bounce back with a better performance, and they need it. This Detroit team's legit. They're real. But you know what? I kind of, every time I was thinking about this game over the last day, I'm thinking, you know what? I'm thinking of the Minnesota game from the standpoint of Brock had completed 85% of his passes through 3 quarters in that game.
Before a concussion.
Then he got concussed, but I won't blame it on the concussion. He just threw picks in the 4th quarter, right?
He did.
And there were tons of people going, well, it doesn't matter that he was great for 3 quarters. He wasn't good when it mattered. Well, okay. If we want to take that as the premise, then shouldn't we all be totally fine with the way this last game went? Because he was S for 3 quarters, maybe 3.5 quarters. Probably could have thrown 2 pick sixes.
Savage, man. You shouldn't be allowed to play catch with your kids for dropping that pick that he threw to you. But go ahead.
Which one?
The first one in the first series. Yeah. Hit him right there.
Keyshawn Nixon had another one in his hands. These guys could play offense. If they could catch, they'd play offense. But they were on defense, and they dropped those balls. Okay, so he gets away with at least 2 picks, maybe 3, played terrible. But guess what? Gets to the 4th quarter with the game on the line, and you take away the George Kittle right in his hands drop, and he's 7 for 7 on the final drive with 2 runs, and look great and scored a touchdown, and they win the game, and they come from behind, and they do what everybody says they couldn't do. So I don't know.
Which was big to keep your season alive. You picked the greatest time to put one up in that column.
Exactly. My whole thing is that if you're going to rip him for the Minnesota game and go, those first 3 quarters don't matter, it's what he did in crunch time. Well, there were tons of people that I'm sure were calling you and Steiny that after that Minnesota game saying exactly that. And I was saying, hey, you know what? The guy was good that night. He completed 85% of his passes, but none of it mattered. Why?
Because they got the L.
Got the L, turned it over in the clutch, wasn't good at the end. 4th quarter, fell apart. That's it. Well, guess what? This game was the opposite. He was bad, really bad, like out of rhythm, out of sorts, terrible, really in a fog, looked terrible the entire first 3 quarters. But he circled the wagons, blocked it out, and was perfect when he needed to be perfect. And even when George Kittle dropped that pass, he picked him up. Completed a couple more passes, had a key run. McKivitz and Brendel had a wipeout block on the McCaffrey touchdown run.
I think Ayuk had the catch of the year. Because what do you do on that 4th and 5? Do you punt it and trust your defense who had been getting gashed? I mean, that was a hell of a catch. And you could say throw, but it was more, the defender was on him. It was like I called it a windshield wiper. He had his hand over trying to hope to hit the ball or deflect it. But Larry, I'm going to say this to everything you said. Yesterday was a day of rejoicing. It's the 3rd straight trip for Kyle Shanahan and the Niner team to the NFC Championship game. I'll go back to 2019. Kyle went from 4-12, took his team to the Super Bowl. So the Niners have been in big games. My thing is, partner, and we haven't spoken, I was so gung-ho on 38-10. It wasn't just about Brock. He was a part of it because he has been phenomenal. 38-10. But you and I know in this world of football right now in sports, the most important position is the quarterback position. And we know the Brock Purdy story. The origin, I believe, and we talked about it with Willard and Dibbs, it's draftism. I believe he's hated on because of where he was drafted. So now all of a sudden, we're going to say he's a system this, system that. But Larry Krueger, I never in a million years sat down with my num-num juice that I had watching this game Saturday night and thought that I was going to watch that game in the fashion it played out. And I'm going to save my takes on Brock Purdy because you hit it, but I'm more concerned about the other side of the ball in regard to the D-line when you're paying and shelling out all that money. And it starts with Bosa, and you went and got Chase Young. And I'm sitting here watching Aaron Jones and the Green Bay Packers run it down your throat. They kept the ball and set the tone with a drive for over 7 minutes in the first quarter. So I'm with you on Brock, but I'm also want answers from you because you're around this team on a daily basis. Larry, the Raven game, which was Brock Purdy's worst game, there was no weather. He was just bad. There were bad reads, and the Ravens didn't drop the ball. The Niners got a game this Sunday to go to the Super Bowl, so I'm trying to be positive, but I want answers from you as to, do I just say this defense all of a sudden doesn't have the necessary skill set players? Because I tend to think, no. You got Hargrave, which you didn't have last year. You lost Ebukam, and Farrell's not playing. But, Larry, Wilkes is my guy on my radar. Am I wrong for that, or what's up with the lack of D that we didn't see Saturday night? Because if that happens this Sunday against the Lions, you're going home. Or, and I mean this, in Vegas against Kansas City and Baltimore if you get there. That's what shocked me more than Brock Purdy being bad in the rain.
Yeah, I mean, the Niner D-line's got big names, and right now they ain't doing it. I mean, they're just not doing it.
What's happening?
Well, I mean, Bosa had 5 pressures, or 5 quarterback hits, I should say, but the Niners only got 6. That means, Kinlaw was the only other guy that touched the quarterback all night. Chase got close, but no cigar. Gregory didn't even get that close. I mean, they got to get – I mean, I'll say this. Green Bay, on paper, number 2 in the NFL, pass block win rate.
Okay.
Right?
That I didn't know.
So they were the best. They were the second best pass blocking team in the game. And that was a concern. Love wasn't getting hit. You're a Dallas fan. Micah had nothing, did nothing. Dallas did nothing. They sacked him not at all.
At all.
So I mean, Green Bay, sometimes you got to credit your opposition, right? Green Bay's offensive line, number 2 pass block win rate. Detroit, 14th pass block win rate. But Detroit's got Penei Sewell, best right tackle in the game.
Man.
Frank Ragnow, who's banged up, but best center in the game.
Soldier. He came back in the game.
Yeah, and Taylor Decker's a well above average left tackle. So they've got 3 really good offensive linemen. And there's a very good chance that the Detroit O-line beats the Niner D-line in this game. But, there's other reasons, too, as far as the run D. Jair Brown's got to play this week over Logan Ryan. Did you see how awful Logan Ryan was against the run? I mean, he's a corner, and you're asking him to be a safety and step up into the hole and hit somebody. He's just not built to do that.
Man.
At best, he's going to shoot for your ankles and try to hold on. He's not going to challenge you in the midsection or high or deliver any kind of big detonating hit. Jair Brown can. Now, is he healthy enough? Do they trust him enough? How's the knee sprain? So on and so forth. I was shocked that he didn't go in this last game, but they need him. They need him. And then as far as the run D goes, you lost, Emmanuel Mosley, and I know that sounds crazy because he's a corner, but he's a great edge-setting corner. That hurts you in the run game. You lost Azeez Al-Shaair. Al-Shaair had a big year this year with Tennessee, and I think he's so tight with some of the Niners. He was actually on the sideline, I think, for that game this weekend. But you lost some really good run defenders. Then you brought in Hargrave.
Armstead back, though.
You got Armstead back, but you brought in Hargrave. Hargrave's a much better pass rusher than he is a run stuffer.
Man.
So they lean on Greenlaw and Warner to do it all, to absolutely do it all. They also replaced Jimmy Ward. He was like a linebacker. He was a hitter. Jimmy. The couple years ago they had Tart. Those guys, and they replaced these guys with guys. Gibson was very disappointing. Couldn't even keep his feet in this game. Hafanga's out for the year, but Hafanga's, really good at reading the mesh point and the handoff, but he's not an awesome run defender. So they've DJ Jones a few years ago walked out the door. They were an impenetrable run D. This year, their stats say they're better than they are. Why? Because their offense is scoring 30 a game, and teams are just stopping running on them. I think they faced like one of the lowest number of rush attempts against them of any team in the league. So their run defense rankings, don't tell me about that. Stats lie. Teams don't run on the Niners for other reasons. They're not necessarily stopping the run. So in this game, they better, because you got David Montgomery, who's a plow horse. You got Jahmyr Gibbs, who's electric. Jahmyr Gibbs can get to the edge. He can get to the edges of the defense, and he can catch the ball. So that's going to be a big one. But the other on the other side, I believe is Jonah Jackson, the guard for Detroit. He's out. Ragnow's not 100%.
So
maybe there's some potential that Hargrave can put some pressure, Armstead can put some pressure on Goff in his face. And if they pressure Goff in his face, the Niners are going to win this game. I really
Tampa Bay has some success. I didn't know that game was teetering. I didn't know. I was like, they might pull this off. You are correct. So, Larry, at this juncture, you would think you want to see what I thought was the staple of this Niner team before the offense took off. And I was like, hey, the defense could take a couple steps back and they'll still be fine, because on the offensive side of the ball, you were scoring, like you said, 30 or 40 points. But again, it's not a funeral. How many other cities wish their team was still playing? But it is shocking. Again, you mentioned Bosa and the pressures, and they did get to Love at the end of that game and kind of flushed him out the pocket. But it's just something to, when you think about the Strahans or the Charles Haleys or the Alden Smiths before the troubles, these are the stages to where you get home and pound your chest. And just in regard to Bosa, because he's your highest paid defensive player, Larry, that was, like it or not, the fourth playoff game with him not getting home. And it's just rather peculiar to me.
Yeah, well, the Niners have put all their money in their D-line. Drake Jackson had, 3 sacks week 1 against Pittsburgh. Then he got hurt. They brought in Randy Gregory. He's given him a little. They brought in Chase Young. They look good against Jacksonville, but Chase Young's stiff now.
Yeah.
Chase Young, that knee surgery, he's not the same guy. Not the same guy that he was at Ohio State. Not the same guy he was his rookie year. I think they're going to let him walk at the end of the year. I think the best hope in this game is that Hargrave. Where was Hargrave? You paid him a ton of money in the offseason to come in and be a difference maker. And I remember when they made that signing, you're sitting there going, man, can you imagine Nick Bosa and Javon Hargrave on the same line? Man,
I was thinking that.
Yeah, they're going to wreck shop, man. They're going to be living in the backfield. No, they're getting very little out of their D-line. So I don't know if it's fatigue. I don't know if it's, I'll say this. I watched the game 3 times. They're getting close.
Yeah.
Okay. They're getting back there. They're just not getting home. You know what I'm saying? They're putting pressure on the opposing quarterback. Chase Young got really, really close, but he's not getting home. So I don't know what the answer is.
So am I wrong to just bring up Wilkes' name? And you could say, hey, Goo, it ain't Wilkes. It's not the system or the play calling. Is there any merit to that? Because where do you go if we're not going to blame the players?
Last year under D'Amico, it seemed like they played games up front. And when I say games, they did stunts and twists and, TE stunts and ET stunts and all the guys shooting all over the place. Then they started getting gashed in the run game. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, let's just squeeze the pocket down. Now what I'm seeing is there's not a lot of movement. They're leaning. Give you an example. They signed Sebastian Joseph Day off the street. he played significant snaps. I don't know what the snap count said, but the guy was in there on a regular rotation. This is a guy you picked off the street, and this guy's getting regular run. So Givens is good as a pass rusher, but doesn't do a lot against the run. Kinlaw is strong, but doesn't come off blocks. And
we've been waiting on
doesn't
been
rush
waiting
the
on him
passer
forever.
Sebastian Joseph Day is maybe a little combination of those guys, but between Bosa and Gregory and Hargrave and Chase Young, you got to put heat on Goff. Goff's longest run all year is 11 yards. And if you look at his game log this year, Goo, the teams that beat Detroit, Baltimore, Chicago,
Dallas.
Green Bay, Dallas, they rushed and sacked Goff. So if the Niners if they're going to win this game, they're going to have to rush and sack Goff and get in his face and make him feel the pressure. The one thing that's scary is that Detroit doesn't throw deep. They don't. They throw short, but it's these timing patterns. And if there's a quarterback,
like chunks, though, Larry. No question. Your boy Goff is slinging it. 15, 20 yards. Like throw outside the numbers. Like that's their thing.
Well, not only that, him and Amon-Ra St. Brown are just in a absolute lockstep. I mean, you saw it.
Laporta?
Didn't he? Wasn't it a fourth down pass play against Dallas? Yeah. He stuck it in there.
Incredible.
So when if Goff's going to throw to a spot and Amon-Ra is going to run some 10, 12-yard stop route and turn around, the coverage had better be tight. And that to me is the concern, that the 49ers are can they stop the short, 3 steps and it's out. You're not sacking Goff in that situation. He can throw some lasers, and he's got an Amon-Ra, terrific player. I mean, think about it this way. There's 11 offensive players. Detroit has 5 elite players on offense. Sewell, Ragnow, Gibbs, Laporta,
Brown,
and Amon-Ra.
Yeah.
So almost half of their offensive team are almost as good as any other player at their respective position in the entire league. So the Niner defense is going to be challenged in a huge way Sunday.
But it starts with the run, Larry, because they can play. Goff can play action pass with the best of them. I mean, they're not just happy to be here. It starts with their coach Campbell. They're going to go for it, and that's what was just like. Again, I didn't give Green Bay a chance, and you're right, they beat Dallas, but I thought that was just by default on what Dallas didn't do. I didn't think the Packers. They were 9-8. And let's be honest, they snuck in, and the physicality that they brought in weather conditions on the road. 1, I didn't see that happening. And 2, I'm just like, this can't repeat itself. But people are like, oh, well, they got past the Packers. Detroit will be a walk in the park. I'm like, Detroit won the division. So you are right. If they're able to just pound the Niners front like Green Bay did, it can be a long afternoon in regard to the play action pass. That becomes an option for Goff, and he can sling it with the best of them. So that's why I'm calling out the D-line, and it's not just me. I know they won the game, but if we're being honest, Larry, and my pops has a ticket right now, Norman Johnson, for the Niners to win the NFC and the Super Bowl, he called me, texted me, thinking that ticket might need to be thrown out. Because, Larry, I will say this, and I'm comfortable in doing so 48 hours or 72 hours after the game. The Green Bay lost that more than the Niners won. You could say, well, what's that mean? The Niners are playing this week? That can't happen again, because a better team will make you pay if you're not on your A game. And that was the Niners C game. And we hadn't talked about Kyle.
We'll get to Kyle.
Why did Brock throw the ball 39 times in those conditions when everybody – what a pair of eyes saw he was struggling throwing the rock?
Yeah.
And you got McCaffrey. That's questionable.
I mean, I'll say this for Green Bay. Forget the record. I mean, Green Bay had a super young quarterback making his first, this was his first full year in the NFL. They didn't go into free agency and sign a veteran wide receiver. They didn't go into free agency and sign a veteran tight end. They drafted all these guys, so they kind of gave away the first half of the year. They were like 2-5. The quarterback wasn't on the page of the receivers, right? But then as the season got going, suddenly here comes Musgrave, here comes Kraft, here comes Jaden Reed, here comes Dobbs, Christian Watson. Love started to improve. Yeah,
right.
I mean, they're kids, but talented kids. So, I mean, Dallas did gag I mean, that was terrible. I mean,
but now it looks like they didn't gag as much as I thought because Green Bay is formidable. I
picked Green Bay to win the game.
No, come on, Larry.
Yeah, I did. I picked Green Bay.
Where can we hear the tape? I mean, our guys like to check YouTube.
Go check it out.
Come on, why would you pick Green Bay?
Because Dallas is a fraud.
Over Dallas. Okay, I thought you were saying for last against the Niners.
No, I picked Green Bay to beat Dallas.
Okay.
And then I went on the YouTube show and I kept saying, watching Niner fans are like, oh, they're going to win by 4 touchdowns. I'm like, you guys are high.
Right.
They're not going to win by 4 touchdowns. They're not going to win by 3 touchdowns. They're going to be lucky if they win this game. This game is going to be really, really tough.
You were right.
I mean, I knew Green Bay was going to be tough. I knew it was going to be tough. But I expected Brock to be not as rusty as he was.
Man.
But looking back at that game, Goo, and you just kind of hit on it, I love Kyle Shanahan. I think he's one of, I don't know.
I'll take him. Top 5 coach right now.
Top 5, top 6, something like that, right?
You could say top 3. All right.
Who would you rather have? Maybe.
I'd go Andy Reid, and that's it to me.
I mean, I like McVay.
Okay.
I'm a McVay fan.
Well, he did beat him on the NFC Championship.
But, I mean, Kyle Shanahan is a very good coach. This game plan this weekend, Kyle, I mean, what are we talking about here?